Hey everyone, Phil Pendlebury here once again, and I hope you're having a super mega large day. Welcome back to the Steinberg Nuendo channel and my little section Nuendo Explained. So in this one, we're going to continue where we left off on the last video, doing some basic sound design, a few little tips and tricks. In the last one, we used the built-in libraries from Nuendo to build up some basic sound design. And in this one, we're going to tweak the mix, or in fact, we're going to do the full mix at the end of the video. But first, I want to show you Soundly and how we can use that to enhance some of our bits of sound design. So I think we'll move straight into it. Just before we do, of course, as I always say, don't forget, leave me some comments. Let me know how things are going. Any questions, I'll do my best to answer them all. And that'll do. Let's go for it. So once again, it's headphones on. And let's bring up Soundly and show you how it works. There's Soundly. As I said, it's an online library. So you've got a whole plethora of effects that can be easily searched for. This isn't an advert for Soundly. And there are other tools that do this job, but as you can see, we can search for pretty much anything we want to. You know, if we put in airplane here, as long as I spell it correctly, we'll probably find a whole bunch of effects for that. We can then click through them and audition them and do various things with them. Now, at the moment, because of the way we're working, we won't be able to hear any of this. I would normally, but because we're working in a specific way, we won't be able to hear it. So there's another nice little trick that I'd like to start off with. First of all, we'll just set up our screen. Let's get rid of the right zone there, and I'll put my control room back just so I know what's going on. So what I'm going to do is add a new audio track, and we'll call it Soundly Monitor. And if I go up to the mixer, and there is the Soundly monitor track. And if we now go over to the insert and I'll type Soundly in the search, and we've got the Soundly monitor, you can see it says it's disconnected at the moment. And what I find usually solves that is just to close Soundly. As it signs in, we'll see that it's now connected. So what this means is that we can now listen to Soundly through Nuendo. So if I bring Soundly back up again, and we can now go through the sounds. And once again, we used Nuendo's built-in libraries to build up the sounds of this video. We could have easily used Soundly, and there was probably a lot more choice because it's an online library, right? So, you know, rather than having everything stored on disk, which you do in the case of Nuendo's free stuff, with Soundly, everything's online and you only download what you need. You can audition it and then you download it. And there are literally, you know, hundreds of thousands of sounds available. But we're not going to worry about that. You can imagine the amount of choice that would give us. The other thing we can do is select sections of the file, and when we do that, we can just drag them into Nuendo however we want. There's also options to normalize, reverse, and do all those things that you would probably imagine, and you can send directly to Nuendo as well. So that's how Soundly works. But in this case, I'm actually not going to use any of the sounds from Soundly because we've already got our sounds. And for those of you that didn't hear it previously, let's have a quick skip through. I'm not going to play it all. We've got scene 1, we've got scene 2, and we've got scene 3. So all these were built up using Nuendo's built-in sounds. So what I'd like to do here is show you one of the features of Soundly that's quite unique.
Flight SK-84 to Robot Dystopia is departing in 10 minutes from Gate 10.
Okay, so we've got presets here. So let's just go through a couple of those.
Hello, Dave. I'm Cal 9000. And I'm only here aboard this spaceship to serve you and the crew, and
So as you can imagine, there's quite a lot of scope here. Angry person on the phone. We've got lots of different voices we can choose. There's also different nationalities you can use. And let's have a listen to a couple of others.
Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well.
Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well.
We can choose a load of stuff there. But let's go back to our airport announcer. And part of that, if we click this button here, we'll see the little Place-it thing. So first of all, let's put in the dialogue. Smegville Airways flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15. Let's have a listen.
Smegville Airways Flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
Okay. So not only do we get the particular voice, we can choose a different voice. Let's say Germany.
Smegville Airways Flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
And so on. Very useful. Let's pick a Japanese, maybe.
Smegville Airways Flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
And let's go back to our favorite.
Smegville Airways Flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
Okay, so you can see that there's a gap there. Not quite sure why that happened. But let's look at Place-it. So with Place-it, we can do various things to the sound. You can choose the environment. So we've got, for example, hallways and stairs. Let's have a quick listen.
Smegville Airways Flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
Yeah. So let's go back. Let's actually keep it at that. Why not? But we'll go back to Place-it. We'll choose the airport. And we can maybe pull the speaker down a little bit. Decrease the space. Actually, let's increase the space a little bit.
Smegville Airways Flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
And we know that we're going to have to do something with that gap there in a minute. And maybe we can just slow it down a little bit and raise the pitch a little bit.
Smegville Airways Flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
Okay, so we've got our voice. We've got it roughly how we like it. What we're going to do now is just drag that into Nuendo. So there we go, into the folder. So we've done that, and let's move it back up. And what I'm going to do is really zoom in on that file. I'm going to chop out that little bit that we had earlier on that didn't sound quite right. And I'm going to drag it and put it there. Now you can imagine that there's going to be something a little bit wrong with this. So it's actually a good experiment.
Smegville Airways Flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
You see, there's no way that we can actually do that cut properly because there's a reverb on it. So what we can do is remove Place-it from Soundly itself. And let's have a listen to that.
Smegville Airways Flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
Incidentally, Samurai Yusip Ed is 321 and Sipha is 15. So we've now got the dry voice. We can pull it in again, get Soundly out of the way, pull that voice up. We can delete that old track as well. We don't need to see that anymore. And now what I can do is edit that file so that it sounds a little bit more realistic. Let's zoom in and we'll put it something like that. Let's have a quick listen.
Smegville Airways Flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
So that would give you the ability then to use your own ambience or whatever on that particular voice. So what I'll do is I'm going to just quickly bounce that. So we'll use the bounce audio and let's just click my key command there. So we've now got one file. We'll put it roughly in the middle there and then we'll go and find that track on the mixer. So here it is over here. And in this one, we'll use the Soundly Place-it plugin, which now gives us the ability to choose all those options that we saw earlier on.
Soundly의 flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
Cool. I guess if anything, what we could probably do is just quickly go to the channel configuration there. Although that was a mono file, we can change it to a stereo track.
Soundly의 flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
And what we've got there now is a stereo effect on that track. And couple that with everything else, we've got our finished product.
Soundly의 flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
Let's actually move that over. All right, so now we've got all the elements that we need, really. So now let's look at mixing them together using the mixer. We'll do some basic stuff, not going to go into super fine detail, but in this case what we'll do is just create a couple of groups, an effect track, and then do a little bit of moving around of the sounds and the mix itself. So before we carry on, let's just put that voice down into the walkway folder that we made earlier so that we can kind of expand it like that. And we'll bring up the mixer. We don't need the video for the time being, and you can see that all the items are all there. And the next thing I want to do is just quickly change the colors so that we can easily distinguish one part from another. So we'll do that very quickly. Let's just pick something basic and simple. Okay. So now it's all very clear in the mixer as well. We can see all those different parts. And in fact, if we wanted to, we could actually go in and rename everything. And if you're doing a bigger project, you might well want to do that. But let's start with that first section.
Soundly의 flight 321 is boarding.
So I'm going to pull those down.
Soundly의 flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 6.
So one of the things we noticed earlier on the office sound was the sound of the clicking and typing. So what I'm going to do is just pull off some of the top end from that. Again, we could have used a filter, or we could have done it maybe more cleverly, but that's all I need to do really, I think. And then we can increase the volume a little bit of that one. And once again, the elevator. And I think what I'd like to do with that is also add a little bit of ambience and probably add some stuff to all of them. So we'll get to that in a second. Let's just check that MRI. Again, maybe a little bit of the top end could come off. Right, let's see how we're getting on so far.
Soundly의 flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
All right, so that's our first little section roughly mixed. We'll move on to the second section and then we'll go to the next phase. So let's set the locators so that we can hear the right parts. And once again, we'll do a quick mix on this. So if we look at the video, remember I was saying in the last video, I was explaining that we've got that forklift movement there. Have another listen. Because I wanted to kind of imagine that there was something going off outside the video. So what I'm going to do is just pan that over slightly to one side like this. I'm using the stereo combined panners because I like the way that you can move the whole image rather than just pan left and right. So let's put it over there. Keep it quiet. Let's hear what we've got. And we'll keep adding the rest of the stuff. All right, so that's the basic mix done on that little section. And then the final one would be the takeoff. So we'll select that. Once again, we bring up our mixer and let's see what we can do with that. So that tire screech and if we look at the video, we can probably say that it's slightly off center. Not a lot, just a little bit in the distance. All right, so let's have a listen to that with the video itself so far.
Soundly의 Westflight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
So I guess if anything, what we could do is just quickly demonstrate a little bit of the automation that we could do there. So for example, the jet itself, actually stays quite central to the camera. But if I just show you the beginning of it, you can see that it's just slightly over to the left. So what we can do, we've got our jet here. We can just start off there a little bit over to the left. We can hit right on the automation. Something like that. Now that we've written that in, you can see that pressing read on the automation now gives us what we just drew in, and you can also see down here that those are the points that we drew. You could do automation for a lot more of these. So the other thing we could do, there's two things really that I'd like to finish off with here. So if we unsolo the jet, what we can do is we can go to the first three tracks we've got here and right click and add group channel to selected track. So this would be the walkway group. And actually what I like to do with groups is to name them in capitals so that I can distinguish them sometimes. We'll do the same thing with the boarding, and we'll do the same thing with takeoff. So now we've got our three groups, and actually what we can do is completely hide everything except for groups. And there are our three groups, which we can now deal with however we like. So let's have a listen now that we've got our separate sections sent into groups.
Soundly의 Westflight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
So as you can see, because we've sent those individual sections to groups, what we can now do is control all of them at once. Now, this might be obvious to some of you, but some people might not have seen this before. Really useful. Okay, so the final step, let's add an effect track. And once again, I'm going to use Place-it from Soundly. And that is now an effect which we can send to. And because most of this takes place outside, I'm going to find an outdoor area, far outdoors. And then what we can do now, we can go to our send effects and we can say Soundly place it. And if we have a listen to for example, to the boarding area, let's just make the FX channel visible. And you'll see that when I start to send from that group, which is all the boarding stuff, it's going to go over here and you're going to get that signal as well. So here it comes. And we'll do the same thing with the takeoff. And of course, you could also do the same thing with the walkway section. If we wanted to, we could go to the walkway section and we could add some ambience to that as well. And there's also another way, of course. This way we're using one plugin here to send, but we could also just insert. So again, let's do it that way. Let's do place it again. Now this time we're indoors. So let's find hallways and stairs or public places. Let's say, well, there's the airport. Look, that's the same ambience that we used on the voice.
Soundly의 flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
All right, that's cool. So I think that just about wraps this one up. We've done a bit of mixing, we've showed some automation, we've done some panning, we've organized things quite nicely, and let's have a look at the finished video.
Soundly의 flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
And there is one more thing I should probably just mention here before we finish off, and that is you may have noticed on my mixer earlier on that I did have some leveling over the master channels. That's very, very useful, to make sure that things aren't going above a certain level and so on, but that is your choice. And the final thing, let's just go and make sure we've got the whole thing selected like that. And then we're going to go to the menu, we're going to go to File, Export, Video, and we've got two choices here. We'll go into those another time, but what I'm going to do is render a new video onto my desktop, and we'll call it Thai Airport. And we'll just leave all the settings as they are, and we'll export the video. And that means that it's now going to be there available for us to look at, and I can insert it into the finished video that you're looking at. So we'll just click Export Video, and off it goes.
Soundly의 flight 321 is boarding now from gate number 15.
So we covered quite a lot of things there. If you missed how we built up the stuff in the first place, go back and have a look at the previous video in this little two-part series. And if not, if you don't need to see that, obviously we can just use this one as a standalone. In this one, we covered Soundly. Previously, we showed you how to build in some of the sounds using Nuendo's built-in libraries. So that's it from this one. I'll see you next month. Don't forget, as I always say, please like, subscribe, send me some comments. They are most important and most useful. Give us an idea what we're doing right and wrong, and let me know if there's any questions. So far, we've managed to answer, I think, all of them, which is great. Always makes me happy when I can do that. And I'll see you again soon. Have a great rest of the day. Super mega large. Bye for now.